How you doing, everyone? Welcome to the preview show. I'm Dave Wiggins, and I'm joined today by a couple of guests. And the idea of the preview show, I suppose, is to look back at the previous match, but also to look forward to the upcoming match or the upcoming matches. So my guests this evening are, my first guest is Patrick Van Dort. Patrick, how are you?
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Good to have you on, Patrick. I know you're very busy. Patrick, you are the Deputy Sports Editor for JPI Northern Ireland, isn't that right?
That's it.
So what does that mean? Break it down for us.
Yeah, basically, well, primarily the newsletter is my main focus, but then I'm also still back working on the Portadown Times for around a day a week to work on the sport for that. So I started out in the Portadown Times 23 years ago, I think it is now, 1998 or whatever. And covered Portadown then a few years after the last league title win when Brian Courtney retired, and have been covering Portadown ever since. And then maybe 4 or 5 years ago started working more for the newsletter when there was a merge with the company. So that's pretty much my breakdown.
When you were talking there, the thing that stood out the most was that you've been working there for 23 years, which means you're very old.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And I can only say that because you're the same age as me.
Exactly, yes.
Brilliant. Good to have you, Patrick. And then our other guest this evening is Portadown supporter Neil Campbell. How are you, Neil?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Tell us a bit about yourself, Neil. Go on.
Well, my resume is nowhere near as stacked as Patrick's there, but I'm a lifelong Portadown fan, long-suffering, lifelong Portadown fan. And just been traveling down every week for the games and stuff. Favorite memories: 2005 Irish Cup final was always a good one. Win the league 2002, and even, do you remember the game against Glentoran? It was the season we won the Irish Cup, but we beat them 4-3 on New Year's Day. Keith O'Hara scored a last-minute goal. That's one of my favorite ever Portadown games. Just doing that.
Brilliant. You've got a bit of merchandise up above your head there as well for us from the club shop.
I do indeed, yes. As you can see, the club legends frame photo, and above it, the sort of legendary shirts that we've had over the years.
Nice one.
I was going to say the 2005 Irish Cup final was my first ever cup final as a reporter. Irish Cup final I covered, so it holds special memories for me too, Lee.
Oh, it was a great day. Sun was shining,
Yep.
and that's all that matters at the end of the day. Like.
That's it. It was nervous at the start. Lawrence scored early enough, didn't they? And then, well, the rest is history. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the past, although we will a little bit. We're here mainly to talk about the future. But the media team have told me to advertise this, and maybe the young people among us will know what this means. No, we'll all know. So this goes out on YouTube, and the Portadown YouTube channel has recently surpassed 1,000 subscribers. And I suppose it would be great if you're watching this. We'd really encourage you to subscribe to the channel. You can just click the little button that says subscribe. I don't know if that's going to come up on screen or not. I think it might. And what that really means is whenever We Are Ports TV post a video on YouTube, then you'll get a little notification. But it also just shows that the channel is popular. And in the future, that might be a way to bring in a little bit of money to the club as well. So if you can, subscribe to that. If you don't know how to do it, ask a child or a teenager, I suppose. Neil, you might know how to do that, do you?
I'm not very good in computers and stuff, so that's a no from me.
All right. So, guys, I suppose the first thing we want to talk about is just the league so far for Portadown this season. We've played 10 matches, little bit up and down. So, suppose we're just thinking about how the season's gone. We're obviously in the bottom half of the table this season, sort of hoping for survival or a little bit more. So I suppose we're thinking about who's in the mix and recent results, how they've gone, and how you see that so far. So Patrick, the league so far for Portadown, obviously it's been up and down. How have you seen it so far? Obviously you're a Portadown supporter as well at heart. You've been coming to matches for a long time. So.
Well, covering Portadown for this amount of time, but then now obviously expanding myself and covering all Irish League clubs, so I'm jumping between different games. So I think I've probably covered most home matches with Portadown, so I've seen a fair amount of them this season. I think it was always going to be interesting what level of expectation fans had for the first season coming back up. And I think the way this season is, with everything else going on around it in such a strange season, that's maybe made it a wee bit different as well, and has an added element thrown into the mix. So, I mean, I think it's probably gone as expected thus far. I think most fans would probably anticipate up and down results. I think what is interesting is maybe there've been some pretty heavy defeats in there, which have probably maybe shocked a few fans, or maybe put a few Portadown fans, left them a bit nervy about maybe, how's this going to affect us long term, or good enough to stay up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the season overall, the way it's going to pan out, you'll probably see that. I think there's bigger gulf than ever, with the sort of top now, maybe 4, 5, even 6 clubs, but they're capable of posting some big wins over the rest. I think that'll probably be reflected overall. So generally speaking, I think it's probably gone as expected, as I would have thought anyway.
Yeah. Neil, we're sitting 10th. We've played 10. We've got 8 points. Dungannon have played 12. They're 11th on 8 points. Carrick are sitting bottom there, who were playing this Saturday, of course. They've played 9 and they're sitting on 4 points. And then Warren Point sitting above those 3 teams on 12 points, but they have played 12 matches as well. Is that kind of, like Patrick was saying, it's kind of gone according to what we might think it has? Is that your thoughts as well?
Yeah, very much so. I was always of the opinion that if Portadown finished 10th this season, I would have bit their hand off for it at the start of the season. Yeah. I think it was always going to be an up and down season, especially with such a young squad. There was going to be bumps on the road, which there has been. There was going to be the odd hiding, which there has been in abundance, to be fair. Mm. But there was also going to be weeks where, they would pull out a great performance and take teams by surprise. And you could sort of say the Glenavon game at the start of the season is a perfect example of that. And Portadown do have it in their locker where they can give the big boys, so to speak, a game on their day. But for
you're not considering Glenavon the big boys?
Of course not. Okay. But there'll be teams that will come down to Shamrock Park throughout the season. They'll find it very difficult. I mean, I know we lost, but I think Portadown were very unlucky to lose against Linfield at home earlier in the season. And the season for me has gone what I expected. If we were always going to be in around 8th, 9th, 10th, pushing around there, and hopefully not below that, because we don't want to be finishing in the bottom 2, and we don't even know what the permutations are yet for next season and like that. But it was always going to be in around where we are, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we all got excited. First match of the season, we gave Glenavon a good humping, and that was brilliant. And to be honest, if the season had ended there, I would have been over the moon. But we played on, and like Patrick, you said, we've had a couple of hidings as well from the bigger teams. Crusaders beat us 5-0 at Seaview, isn't that right? Mm-hmm. Cliftonville beat us 5-0 at Solitude. I'm just looking, and obviously, we got beaten away at Carrick, who were playing this week again, 4-1. So, I sort of feel like you can cope with those heavy defeats as long as you're picking up points against the teams in the bottom half that you need to pick up points against. Do you feel like that, Patrick, or are those hidings a bit more difficult to deal with?
I think I covered the home game against Coleraine and then the home game against Linfield, which Neil mentioned, and I think the contrast between those 2 performances was interesting in the space of a few weeks, because Coleraine game expectations were really high. If memory serves, that was the first home game, and Coleraine were super, but Portadown didn't play the way they wanted to, and I think that's the big thing that Massey Tippin keeps going back to. Give us a chance to stay up on our own terms, give us a chance to go out on our own terms. So if they're not producing the performance that he's expecting, that's where the frustration comes in. If you lose and still produce that performance, so be it. So Linfield was probably an example of a really good performance, but not the result. But at least then you can adapt to that. And I think it's probably important not to be too disheartened by heavy results, because you will 100% see Crusaders, Cliftonville, Larne, Linfield put multiple goals past other teams over the course of the season. I think you just maybe have to write it off as saying, 0 points. It's the points tally we're looking at, not necessarily, or presumably not the goal difference. So it's the point of you're concerned about, just move on.
Yeah, I think looking back at the previous Carrick match and the matches was it the Cliftonville match?
Yeah.
Heavy defeats. They were kind of around the time there was a little bit of COVID in the camp as well, and as everybody knows, that affects people, for a couple of weeks, and even recovering from that, even if you are young and healthy, maybe just your energy levels and all of that kind of stuff as well, maybe just weren't there. And I don't want to beat the drum of the old we're a young team, because that's not something I personally like to focus on too much. But I suppose if you're a young guy and you're coming into this league for the first time and you're going to somewhere like Solitude where you're playing on a different pitch and you're playing against a well-established Irish Premiership team, you could get overawed or you could find it quite difficult. So I suppose this season, part of it is just settling back into the league and finding your feet and going to these stadiums again that you haven't been to. So yeah, I think I agree with you guys. We're sitting in 10th. I think we're okay. We've got Warrenpoint, ourselves, Dungannon, Carrick. Do we think those are going to be the 4 teams who are going to be down there at the tail end of the season, Neil?
Yeah, I would imagine so. But then I know obviously games in hand come into consideration, and you obviously want the points on the board first and foremost. But Glenavon aren't too far off that as well, and they on their day they can beat somebody big, but then they'll drop silly points and stuff. So I wouldn't discount them yet either. But it's still too early. Like, we haven't even played the full set of first fixtures.
True.
But yeah,
although
realistically,
according to Gary Hamilton, if it hadn't been for referees, then Glenavon would be sitting second in the league at the minute. So that's the other side of that coin. I don't know if that's true or not. But Patrick, what do you think there? Is that going to be the four teams in the mix there?
I think, as Neil says, most people probably would have predicted that at the start of the season. But I do think you could have a few strange results. What I do imagine will happen is I can't see teams really stringing a long sequence of wins together. I think, and I think again, going back to the point of it being so competitive now more than ever, it used to be you could maybe look at the next 4 results and say, well, we'll maybe lose that one, that's a tough one, but with a win or a couple of draws in there, a couple of wins or whatever. And now every 4 games, 2 of those could be really strong sides you're facing. So, we've seen Glentoran struggle early on and then, try and turn things around. And we've seen, as you said, Neil, Glenavon close towards the bottom as well. Ballymena had their troubles and then they have put it on together, in fairness. But you probably will see a lot of ups and downs. And it's really kind of hard because we're now in January, but it's still so early in the season. You have to get your mindset around that as well.
Yeah, the season only started on the 17th of October, actually, and we've already had a little break in the middle of that as well. So it is really early, while in other seasons, at the end of January, you'd be looking to see who was going to push on and win the league or who was really struggling. But Neil, as you said, we haven't even completed 1 round of fixtures yet. So we'll see how the rest of the season pans out. We'll move on then. So obviously, we're in the January transfer window, and Matthew Tipton has done some business and some good business by all accounts. Maybe a player that we do know, but also a couple of players that we'd probably never heard of before. And obviously Ben Gay has come back over as well, who got injured. Did he get injured in the very first match at Glenavon? So he hurt his finger, and obviously he's an Aston Villa player on loan to us. So he went back over. I'm not sure that he wanted to go back. He just wanted to play football, but he went back to get his injuries sorted out. And I think he actually had to get a second operation on it. It was quite complicated. So it's good to see him back over, first of all. Left-sided midfield player. I thought he looked good at Mourneview Park that day, but I suppose we haven't seen a whole lot of him. Then we've got Gareth Buchanan, who we all know well, who's come in there into the squad. Goalkeeper, very experienced Irish League goalkeeper, and of course we know him more recently playing at Loughgall, who we've played numerous times over the last couple of seasons. Patrick, what do you think of that signing, Gareth Buchanan? I saw a little. Well, we'll talk about goalkeepers. So the other goalkeeper was signed is obviously Jacob Carney, who's a Manchester United player. He's 19. they've had him out on loan at some lower league clubs in England, getting a bit of experience as well. So I saw on Facebook a couple of Portadown supporters having a little bit of a go about the fact we've got 4 goalkeepers in the squad now. What do you think about those signings, Patrick?
Yeah, I think January window, generally clubs don't like it, unless they're maybe towards the bottom. We've seen in the past some clubs make a few loan signings from bigger clubs to try and give them an injection for the second half of the season if they've been struggling. But again, because we're so early into it, this January window is a bit strange and there's not really massive movement. And I think because of COVID and the potential for losing a lot of players in one go, most clubs don't want to ship players out either. They'd rather hold on to big squads. So I think that's been reflected. But because Matthew Tipton has such good contacts in England, obviously through his playing days and everything like that, that's a bit of a unique source that Portadown have, or certainly stronger connections or an avenue that maybe other clubs don't have access to the same way. So the interest in signings of Ben and Jacob from Premier League clubs is one to watch, I think, and it's an interesting pattern because you don't generally see the big clubs loan players out over here. So it'll be interesting to see how they adapt. But we did see a wee bit of Ben in the Port of England game, and I think we're all pretty pleased with how he looked.
Yeah. So goalkeeper wise, there's 4 of them there now. I think young Pengelly's plan is to end up in America maybe, and I think that was maybe going to happen in January, but it's put back a couple of months. Obviously, we've got Ben Pearce coming over from Manchester direction to play, and well, Gareth Buchanan, obviously, I think he was playing for Banbridge Rangers there after he finished at Loughgall. Maybe he had a child or something like that, but it's nice to see an experienced goalkeeper. I liked his signing because I sort of thought, obviously he probably, I don't know, he'd be the backup goalkeeper, but to be able to have someone as experienced as that to call upon is really good. And I suppose then, I don't know what the manager's plans are between Ben Pearce and Jacob Carney, but I suppose competition is really good for any team in places, and especially goalkeepers. Neil, do you know anything about Sorry, Patrick, go on ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but your original question was about the goalkeepers. So I suppose maybe going back to that, I think Gareth's an excellent signing. We've all seen a lot of him, and he's exactly what he said: experience, good attitude, good mentality. Will be good in the dressing room, and early reports so far, he settled in really well. I spoke to him just after he had signed, and he was just saying, like, it's an opportunity for me to get back into a Premier League club, and I wouldn't have gone I wouldn't have left Banbridge Rangers. He's strong family connections there. I wouldn't have left if it was any other club really, but it's local to him and handy and exciting, and he's just looking forward to being back in and around it. Jacob, we're all, I think, excited to see how he's going to adjust to the Irish League. Again, early reports say that he's settled in really well, and what I like about him is the fact that he has spent some time with non-league clubs, as you mentioned. So he's coming with maybe a bit of a more rounded mentality. It's not just through the academy system. He's coming over with being in and around proper clubs and first team football and that sort of environment. So he'll bring that to the table, and it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts and settles.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see who starts on Saturday, to be fair. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to seeing. Obviously, we don't see the guys in training. So, that's decisions that managers and coaches have to make. And even though we all think we're the Portadown manager, there's only one. So he'll have to make that decision. Neil, then we've brought in Sam Ward there, central midfield. He's an Irish guy, but he's been over at Huddersfield and Colchester, more recently played at Sligo Rovers and Galway in the League of Ireland. He's 22. Did you watch his showreel clips at all?
Yeah, I did indeed. And then I actually watched the interview with Tippy today and talking about him. So I think centre midfield is a position that we have lacked a bit of metal in this season. So I think his addition will definitely be a good one, because it was definitely an area that we needed to strengthen. But he's got a good bit of experience, playing down south as well. So, and I mean, that's a bit of rough and tumble league too. So, hopefully that puts him in good stead for the days ahead of Portadown.
Yeah. When I was watching his show reel, I know we all harp back to the olden days, but was a wee bit of Tony Gorman about him. I thought he hit a few pings from distance. So hopefully he's the one there just for breaking it up and getting the ball moving and maybe getting an odd goal from midfield as well, which would be really good. Do you know anything about him, Patrick?
To be honest, I don't know. Just what we've all heard and seen of the coverage and the reporting of him since he's come up. So I can't say I was aware of him from beforehand, to be honest. But he does sound like, as Neil says, a player that probably brings something that the midfield has been lacking. And then therefore it could maybe also allow you to get more out of the other midfield players and free them up a wee bit more, rather than them being shackled a wee bit by having to do a certain role that maybe isn't playing to their strengths either.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple of matches coming up in the next week or so. We've got Carrick Rangers away on Saturday, and then on Tuesday night we've got Crusaders coming to Shamrock Park. So both those teams we played pretty recently before the break, and it sort of feels like that's come around quickly again. And in the lead up to that, of course, because our league is classified as elite sport, the league is allowed back without fans. And of course, then this week, NIFL have introduced COVID testing for the players, which some managers have kind of been asking about. And so I suppose the COVID testing is there to reassure players and just to make sure everybody's safe and sound. And I think players were starting to be tested today. Is that right, Patrick? Have you heard anything about that this week?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they started today. I think, there's been some media reports or media photographs floating around of the Larne guys getting tested, and then most of the other clubs will be getting tested tonight.
Okay.
So
it seems to be that's the sort of test done internally that can be turned around in 15 or 20 minutes, which is really good. I noticed then NIFL put out some statements. I suppose if they're spending money on this along with the IFA, they want everything to be tight and slick and above board. So they put out a statement this week even suggesting that if teams don't comply with kind of the COVID setup and regulations, that there could be fines or even point deductions. So what's your thoughts on that, Neil? I suppose that's to make sure everybody's complying and doing things properly and keeping people safe.
Yeah, well, sure, Portadown, we should be used to points deductions anyway, so it makes no odds to us. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a bizarre situation, I think, with the whole COVID test and stuff, because, you're banking on the players, strictly keeping to this whole bubbles as well. And, players on top of that are going to have other jobs, which obviously opens up into different avenues with different people and stuff. So the testing was definitely essential, but I just hope that it's frequent enough that if there is any problems, that they arise early doors and it doesn't have a massive knock-on effect. Like, say, for example, after the last Carrick game and then leading into the Cliftonville game, and then you saw a variety of different games being called off for different teams there.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting actually to see if after this round of testing today, I think there's probably potential for matches. I don't know anything about this, but if if you're testing, 20 guys in 12 teams, there's possibly going to be positive results that come up of people who don't even know that they have any kind of infection in their body. So I suppose it's there to reassure players, and I think the IFA and NIFL are to be commended for spending not a wild pile of money, to be fair, but enough money to reassure players and teams that when they step out onto the pitch that they're as safe as could possibly be. But it'll be interesting after tonight. By the time this goes out, I don't know, there might be a match or two called off at the weekend, or maybe we'll get a full house. Hopefully we'll get a full round of matches, because postponements and cancellations. And Patrick, do you think because of testing now, the league has a better chance of being played to its finish? I think they're funding 4 weeks to start with, aren't they?
Mm-hmm, yeah, I think on the testing, as you both point out, it's a positive step by the governing bodies, the officials, to try and bring that element to it all. I think everybody will have used the word reassurance early on, Dave, and I think that's the key. I'm fortunate enough I'm able to still attend matches in a professional capacity, and I mean, I can see the steps that the clubs are taking and the work that goes in, and you're talking about volunteers, devoting a lot of time and clubs devoting a lot of resources to adhering to the protocols. And everybody's, any grounds I've been at or any clubs I've been talking to, they're putting in a lot of hard work. And I think even for the clubs, this extra layer of security, for want of a better term, will probably be welcomed. I think for managers, you want to know what you're working with. So again, the tests, and my understanding is you've got 40 tests per club each week, and they have to be done no later than 48 hours before the game, so hence Thursday for Saturday fixtures. They're done, they're fit, as you said, there's a 15-minute turnaround on results. They're done before training, and then anybody that tests positive, they have to go home. So they're in isolation beforehand, then they have to go home. So that'll at least allow, hopefully, managers to know what the kind of numbers they're working with, and moving forward, then that could be helpful. You may see, as you said, guys, testing positive without their knowledge of it, obviously, and then that could lead to increased numbers. But I mean, it's just impossible to know. Nobody's living and working in a bubble, so you're just having to roll with it week to week. But at least this is a kind of layer of reassurance that everybody can take advantage of, hopefully.
Absolutely. So yeah, hopefully we get a full round of matches this Saturday, and of course we're away to Carrick Rangers. Neil, I don't want to drop you in it, but I believe you live in Carrick, Fergus.
Yeah, I do indeed. Yeah, so I travel down from Carrick each week. My dad is originally from Portadown, so that's that connection.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I live in Carrick.
Very good. Do you have some friends who are Carrick Rangers supporters?
Yeah, a fair few actually. So at the last game there, the 4-1, myself and a handful of others managed to get into the game, and we were getting a bit of flack. It wasn't nice.
Sure,
I don't like losing. I don't like losing to Carrick. I can't take it.
Well, hopefully you can take it, because whenever we beat them this Saturday, you'll be able to get the room back.
I hope so. We owe them one. Like, they've actually been a bogey team of ours for a number of years now, and obviously, with Niall Curry being there now, he really wants to get one over on us, but they have had the upper hand on us, for the last 3-4 years. So we really do owe them one here, especially after the last game. That was a disaster, but at the same time, we didn't know the ramifications that some of the players could have had COVID at that point. So don't want to look at that too much, but yeah, we really do owe them one here, and hopefully we can get a positive result.
Yeah, it's an well, there's too much talk about positive results recently, isn't there? But that was just a COVID joke there for anybody who didn't get it. So points wise, it's actually, I feel this Saturday's match is pretty important, and it's difficult because you're bringing in new players. Carrick have brought in a couple of players there, and obviously coming back after a bit of a break. So Carrick are bottom of the league there. They've played 9, they're in 4 points. We've played 1 more, and we're in 8 points. So Patrick, realistically, if we could get a win on Saturday, Portadown that is, you kind of creep a little bit further away from Carrick there. And I suppose then Carrick are left sitting there going, wow, we're sitting bottom of the league here. What's going on? Can we beat Carrick on Saturday? And what do we need to do differently than the last game, do you think?
Yeah, as Neil pointed out, the track record between Carrick and Portadown is very interesting, and I think pretty much every Irish League club talks about going to Taylor's Avenue and the difficulties they have playing there and going down there, and Carrick use that to their advantage well. But on top of that, then there is certainly the results between Carrick and Portadown throw up a bit of history as well. So I don't know. I think people look at Carrick Rangers, they look at Niall Curry at Carrick, and they look at Matthew Tipton at Portadown, and there's this sort of simplistic view that one's this football and purist and one's this, pragmatist. But I think
which one's which? Which do you mean?
Well, certainly most people consider Matthew Tipton that, don't they, and Niall Curry. But I mean, I've covered Niall Curry as Loch goal manager and seen some really expansive football under Niall, and again, I've seen Matthew Tipton's sides grind out wins, and I think ultimately both of them, like all managers, they're just trying to utilise their resources to get results and get wins, and that's the way they approach it. But there is no doubt that Carrick, especially at Carrick, causes problems for Portadown. So it's how to combat that, and I think maybe like we talked about, Jacob Carney as an option between the posts, and Ben Guy potentially coming back. I think goalkeeper and that attacking midfield position are two key elements of what Matthew Tipp wants to do with Portadown, and he hasn't actually been able to really do that to the way he wants, I don't think, this season. So who knows who's going to be in that? But I mean, if it's a new goalkeeper in, Matthew talks about the last game, the 4-1 game, how the goal that Portadown scored to open the scoring after 9 minutes, I think it was, or 7 minutes, was one of the best goals that he's seen from the Portadown side he's been in charge of. And the big thing for him was the distribution from the back.
Yeah.
And that's what he's looking from his goalkeeper. And with somebody like Ben, in the same way that we talked about Sam bringing something different, Ben probably gives you that bit of creativity in the final third. So those two players coming in, or a goalkeeper and an attacking midfielder coming into the side, might allow him to finally set up the way he really wants. And that could maybe be the key to beating Carrick then, to get one over, because there's definitely a bit of conflict there between the styles of play or the approaches that they take. Carrick's approach seems to really disrupt Portadown.
Yeah, not to offend Neil here, but Carrick, it is not a nice place to go to play football, to be perfectly honest. Results, but also it's just a difficult place to go, and even the last time we played there, the players are getting changed in the stand behind the net, and obviously for appropriate reasons. So, and it was cold and it was wet, and just the pitch isn't obviously the best, and the facilities and all that kind of thing. But you were at that match. What do you think we need to do differently this time?
One of the things they need to do is not get wound up by Keelan Loughran, the plays for Carrick. He rattles our team. He really rattles our team. He's a good player, and
he's all right.
Well, he seems to score against us quite often. So, but he gets in the minds of the players and he rattles them and they react to him. It's just, he gets a bite. You just need to ignore him. But Carrick are going to be up for it, because they will know that, as you said already, the 4 points behind us, they have a game in hand. If they were to beat us, that would put them one behind us with the game in hand. But if we were to beat them, it would open up a bit of a gap, and then we would still have games in hand with the teams above us. But just need to. I always thought the season we were in the championship there in 18-19, where Carrick got promoted. They played to their strengths, and whenever Portadown played them in the playoff, we let them play to their strengths. We need to focus on our own strengths and not allow ourselves to get drawn into this sort of game, more physical side. Maybe Carrick will play, just focus on ourselves. But even going back to what you're saying about Niall Curry, he's done a phenomenal job at Carrick. And you can only make do with what you've got. And Portadown just got to find some way of getting around that on Saturday. And fingers crossed to do.
Carrick have brought in a few players as well. Obviously they had already brought in Johnny Fraser from Glentoran on loan, who to me stands out in that team. He's quick. He was always, especially that Tuesday night at Taylor's Avenue, or what do we call it now, the Lockshore Hotel Arena. He was getting in round the back and he was getting cross, and he just seemed to be available and be on the ball quite a lot. They've obviously brought in Chris Ramsey from Belfast Celtic, was he at? Maybe. Obviously, they didn't get really started this season. Former Portadown centre-back. I don't know if he's ready to play or not. They've brought Corey McMullen in from Dungannon. And then, interestingly enough, they've brought Gerard Story over from Portsmouth, former Portadown player who we know well. Any of those players add anything to their team, Patrick?
I think any manager makes a signing, he hopes they all add something, don't they? I suppose you can look at them and you can kind of point out, well, this player is going to bring, somebody like Chris Ramsey's going to bring experience and an option at the back, and somebody like Gerard, as you say, we've seen him in a Portadown shirt, and we know about a kind of range of passing, and he can bring something to the midfield then. So Nell's obviously signing them all and thinking he can benefit over the course of the season or the rest of the season from every signing. Whether or not, like any news player, same with Portadown, whether they can come in on Saturday with minimal training and have much of an impact, time will tell, really.
Not to put you on the spot, let's go for a score prediction for this Saturday's match. Carrick Rangers v Portadown. Neil, you can go first.
Portadown will win 2-1.
Any scorers?
Stephen Murray, he's been playing well this season, and it was good to see Adam Sally get back on the score sheet against the Glen. So yeah, I'll go Stephen Murray and Adam Sally.
Good job, Patrick. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think even in terms of a numbers game, Portadown are probably due a win over Carrick, aren't they? I think it'll be really interesting to see how they set up, as you mentioned earlier on, Dave. You know, and that could be the key. If they get that right, and the new signings can come in and have an impact. If he's going to throw them in on Saturday, that could be really interesting, because that could be the X factor that they haven't had in previous games with Carrick. And I think the 4-1, although the coronavirus situation had a major say in that, and it would seem in hindsight, I still think there'll be a lot of players kind of smarting from that result, you know. So,
go on, give us the score. Give us the score prediction.
I would probably say there's going to be a goal in it either way, so probably I'll go 2-1 as well, Neil.
Okay. I'm going to sit in the fence and say it's going to be a 2-2 draw, but I think there'll be a few goals, and let me see. Let's say Sam Ward will get one of them. He'll ping one from 35 yards into the top corner. Do you know what? I did watch the highlights of the last Carrick match, and the only good thing, well, we scored a good goal. The only good thing, and it was slowed down in the highlights, I think it was Carrick's third goal when it went in and just hit the corner stanchion and bounced into Ben Pearce's hands. And he just looks to distribute the ball with a smile on his face until the referee blows it for a goal. That was the one that made me chuckle a little bit. So, well, listen, hopefully we get the win. That would be great. And then, of course, we're playing Crusaders at Shamrock Park on Tuesday night. How do we think that's going to go? I kind of get the feeling I like us at home. You know, we played well against Linfield at home, played well against Ballymena at home. Obviously, the Coleraine match, not so great, but I'm always like a little bit of an optimist when we're playing at home. I'm not saying we're going to go out and beat Crusaders, but they're not going to beat us 5-0, are they?
Hope not. Yeah, the Crusaders game. Crusaders is a fixture that I always really look forward to. Home and away. So if Portadown were to get 4 points out of these two games, that would be a fantastic return. It'll be really difficult in both games, and I'm like yourself, I'm rather optimistic when it comes to the home game. So I fancy Portadown to get a draw against Crusaders, but Crusaders are doing well at the minute. You know, even the other week there against Cliftonville, they were dreadful. And they managed to nick a draw at the death there. Now, a friend of mine, like a very good friend, he's a massive Cruise fan, and he was saying that they were absolutely atrocious against Cliftonville from minute 1 to minute 90. But if you've been offered them a 2-2 draw away at the start, they'd have bit your hand off for it. And, you know, they're on a good run of form at the minute. And, you know, the likes of Paul Heatley starting to get into form again. You know, he's came back in the side, he's scoring goals. They're always a threat with Jordan Owens. You know, they've got Lecky as well now. And then obviously McGonigal. So it'll be a hard game. But at home, I think I would fancy Portadown to get something. Crusaders as well over the last sort of few years. Well, it was a fair few years ago now. It's been the championship that long. But those years leading up to that, Crusaders sort of struggled a wee bit at Shamrock Park. You know, Portadown would get the odd result there. So
who's the last Portadown player? Who's the last Portadown player to score against Crusaders? Anybody know?
That's a tough one. Let me think.
Former Laurel Vale and current St Mary's legend.
Marcia, was it?
I think so. I'm not totally sure because I'm not really much of a statistician, but I think that's true.
He did score a goal at Shamrock against them. He gave them the runaround one night, I remember. And she ended up signing for them.
That's right.
So,
no, he'd already played for them, going to Europe, and then came back to us.
Yeah.
Because I heard Stephen Baxter talking to him. I was nosing in, as you do, hanging around, and I heard him going, "Why didn't you play like that for us?" You know, because he did. He absolutely gave him the runaround, and I think did we draw against them maybe, but it was a late draw. I'm not sure if we won.
I think it was maybe 2-2, and Marcia remember the goal, and he kind of picked it up deep and ran at them and sort of smashed it in from maybe the edge of the box, if memory serves. Or
I remember a game as well against Crusaders at Shamrock, and we beat them 1-0, and Tim Mounsey scored on Easter Tuesday, and Crusaders went on to win the league that year. But I think Marcia was playing that night, and he absolutely ran them ragged. I'm pretty sure he played really well that night too. That's going back for a few years now.
I have to get Johnny Dunlop. Johnny Dunlop's a good one for all the stats. He's able to pull them out, so he'll maybe be able to tell us that anyway. Okay. Score predictions for that match then? What do we think? Patrick, you can go first this time. No pressure at all.
Yeah.
You are the football writer professional, so you should be able to tell us.
When I get these score predictions wrong, the editor will be docking my pay. Then I haven't earned it. I think I'm like you. I sort of fancy Portadown to do okay overall at home this season. And I think they've shown enough, bar that Coleraine game against the the bigger, stronger squads, that they can be competitive at home. I think it might be a draw. I'll go 1-1 draw.
Nice. Neil, you were hinting at a draw there.
Ditto. I'll go 1-1 as well.
Couldn't push you for a win, no? A win prediction?
I don't want to be too greedy, I do want to be greedy, but I don't want to be accused of being completely delusional or anything like that. So I'd say if Portadown got 4 points in these two games, that would be a smashing return. So I'll go a draw.
Good for you. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel a draw is even optimistic. We said at the start, the top 4 or 5 teams in the league, since we've been in the championship and come back, the gap is massive. But then, a perceived stronger team might come down and just think it's going to be a bit of an easy evening, go down to Shamrock Park under the lights and sure we beat them 5-0 at home. It should be easy enough. And that sort of psychological stuff can affect things too. Did I say we would draw against Carrick?
Yep.
All right, we'll beat Crusaders 1-0 at home then.
Hope so.
4 points from 2 then, all right.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting you talk about, teams coming to Shamrock. The burden of the name with Portadown was something that they had to adjust to at the championship, wasn't it? Where clubs thought it was a massive occasion playing Portadown. But I think even since Portadown have gone back up, there's been an element of, any club or any manager I've been talking to, they've all paid tribute to how it's great to have Portadown back in the Premiership, and Shamrock Park's a great place to come, and the name's a big name, and the Premiership deserves the name of Portadown, and it's something that everybody's thinking about. And I think even you've seen in how teams set out, there is that element of respect that maybe wouldn't necessarily always be given to other newly promoted teams, especially newly promoted teams with a relatively youthful squad and experience in the top flight. So that's just kind of a quirky element to it all, isn't it, really? You're still carrying that name, but it's up to as Matthew Tipnall says, it's up to the Portadown players to embrace that, really, and use it to their advantage. So one thing out of speaking to him this week for the newspapers, for the Portadown Times and the newsletter, Matthew Tippin pointed out that moving forward, he's going to try and introduce one system, as he put it, for everybody to work to, rather than maybe trying to chop and change dramatically to suit the opposition. The thinking behind that being that if you do lose 4 or 5 players because of testing, then somebody else can come in at short notice. Or if you pick up injuries, which is a bit of a concern too, then somebody can come at short notice and know what they're doing. Now, whether that'll be the same when you're playing away to Carrick and then home to Crusaders in the space of a few days, who knows? And I'm sure there's some fluidity and flexibility within that, but I think it's an interesting approach that he feels he needs to take now moving forward, just to try and break it down, keep it clear. And it's probably something to what they were similar to in the championship, having just a set system and a set pattern of play, and maybe again with the signings that's strengthening that option for them.
Yeah, I'm a 4-4-2 man, but I don't think for 1 second that Matthew is. Yeah, he knows what he's doing. So I think we've played 3-5-2 quite a lot, haven't we? And which turns into a 5-3-2 or a 5-4-1 type of thing sometimes, depending on if you're defending or attacking or what you're doing. Neil, have you got a preferred formation?
See, it's funny, football, because the formations just sort of go around swings and roundabouts. It's sort of somebody tries a new formation and then suddenly everyone else starts playing it. It's like, do you remember in 2016-17, Chelsea started playing 3-4-3 and within a few months everyone was playing it. So I wouldn't be surprised if 4-4-2 makes a comeback eventually. But again, as long as Portadown win, I don't care what formation they play, to be honest. But again, thinking back, I know what you said, we don't want to talk too much about the past, but thinking back, to the golden days under Ronnie, that they always played 4-4-2, and it always brought them major success. So yeah, and that's the same. It's I think most people associate football with 4-4-2. So I don't know. It depends what players he has at his disposal. At the end of the day, if he has, a strapping big centre forward and wingers flying, he play 3-4-3 or whatever, or 4-3-3. So who knows? But I am old school. I do like the old 4-4-2. But it's outdated now, apparently.
4-4-2.
It is about cutting your cloth to maximise what players you have, really, isn't it? So
absolutely.
But when he talks about a system, I don't even know if he's restricting himself tactically or if it's just more about a style of play or an approach to how we're playing with.
Yeah, everybody knows the role. Everybody knows what they're doing at certain times and certain moments. I know. Modern football, eh? There you go. So listen, we're hoping for 4 points in a week, and I think we'll all be very pleased if that happens. What I do want to do is, it's Portadown supporter Dean Irwin's 40th birthday today when we're recording this on Thursday. So we wish Dean a big happy birthday from everybody at the club. Don't forget to subscribe to the We Are Ports TV YouTube channel, and that'll keep the guys very, very happy. And I just want to finish by saying, Patrick and Neil, thank you so much for your time this evening. You've been great knowledge. It's obviously great to get someone like Patrick on who gives us a bit of knowledge, because he watches a lot of football and he writes about football. And Neil, as a passionate Portadown supporter, it's been great to have you on this evening as well. Anything you want to say before we go? Something inspirational?
I'll just say, for any Portadown fan, that if you're not in We Are Ports, you should join We Are Ports.
Thank you. Patrick, give us something inspirational there.
Well, I was going to say, the only equivalency to We Are Ports that I have is subscribe to the newsletter website if you can. That's my version of We Are Ports, but certainly what I will say is I think it's great the work that you guys are doing, and the We Are Ports and the Ports TV media team. I think we're seeing a lot of Irish clubs doing that now, and especially during lockdown, to find the time and to go to the lengths that you're all doing to put out this content for supporters is certainly much appreciated. And I think as time's going on as well, we're finding that partnership, or that comfort zone between the old and the new media. Like I'm obviously in the traditional and the established media, for want of a better term, and I think certainly we're working a lot closer with clubs now and club media teams, and we can all help promote the game together. So yep.
Brilliant. Guys, those were two inspirational finishing sentences, to be fair. So thank you very much for that. Yes, join We Are Ports and subscribe to the newsletter as well, and we'll all go home happy. So 4 points this week, everyone. Have a good weekend, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much for having me.
Cheers.